Welcome back to the Bejeweled podcast, where it doesn't matter how long or how short we take to discuss on the latest news. I'm Joel Liapnet for 121, and I think I'm addicted to Sonic 1 at this point. Oh. Wait, Jiozak is super ugly to point out. Oh, wait, what? Hey, you're muted, by the way.
Crap. Well, I'm Jiozak. Why the X?
You know why.
I'd rather not know why.
Twitter, you know the change?
Yes.
I was about to say.
But yeah.
Oh no, when I spotted
Elon, why the X?
Well, unfortunately, that's how the world works. Apparently, they change logos. We also have to change. Anyways, X aside.
I will still call it Twitter until the day that platform burns to the ground. Anyways.
We're back with episode 23 of the Bejeweled podcast. The podcast just keeps going on for quite some time, honestly. But today, it is episode 23, Nintendo Direct June 2023 edition. Boy, I'll be honest, it's been 2 months, and there's a good reason why. I've been busy. That's the only thing I can say that explains why we have not been discussing anything about the Nintendo Direct. But we are finally here to do so. Right, Jiozak?
Yeah, we would have done it 2 weeks sooner, but I had some family come into town last minute, so that kind of put a kibosh in things.
But now it's fine. And the nice thing is that with certain of the news that from that Nintendo Direct being developed over the next few months, at least we have a bit more to discuss about, especially with the first thing, which is going to be the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC. But oh boy, I have a few things I want to say.
Yeah.
So, anyways, before we start, of course, if you are hyped for another Bejeweled podcast, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more content if you're new, follow Jiozak on these handles, and ring that bell to find Antoine on the channel. Last episode, on the card, top right, I'll also put a plug to the first ever short that is on my YouTube channel. Thank you, Jiozak, for helping me editing. It should be on the card as well on top here.
You're welcome.
With that said, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alright. 2 hours on the clock, well, sort of 2 hours on the clock. Let's get this started, shall we?
Yeah. Do you have a list of the announcements? Because I do.
Well, yeah, but it's a shortened list because honestly, with today's Bejeweled podcast, we actually plan to not only discuss about Nintendo Direct, we're also going to be discussing about things related to it, including our hopes for this September Nintendo Direct, which we're pretty sure will happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a September Direct every year for the past 8 years, so I don't see why they would go against that pattern.
Someone actually made a list of all the Nintendo Directs in September. It's like, yeah, they don't do one, question mark.
Yeah.
Alright, let's get things started with the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC. I mean, at the time we only got, I believe, was just a regular video, but as we saw from the latest Pokemon Direct, it's more than, they showed us way more. Inclusive of a second Elite Four, apparently, in Paldea, which is definitely interesting. Although I'm not too sure how this level scaling will be handled, considering that probably some of us would have gotten quite high leveled at this point with all of the experience candies we've been getting from Terra raids. But I'm excited at least to see there's another, well, elite group of people we can battle.
Yeah, even as someone that really isn't into Pokemon, it still seemed pretty interesting.
I mean, at the same time, we also saw the new legendaries as well, or at least we think it's the new legendaries, we don't even know. For Scarlet Violet through the first DLC, which is the Teal Mask. All I can say is the names are definitely interesting. Okie dokie.
Sorry, not to interrupt. I just listened to the stream audio. I feel like I could be a touch louder.
No problem on that. Hang on, let me do that. Bam. Easy.
Okay. Cool. I'm just gonna talk here for a couple seconds so then I can listen back to it.
Yeah. Also, dude, if the music audio is a bit too loud, I also can adjust that.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Anyways.
Well, at least it was perfect. At least, hey, just on the fly, that's what I like to do. With the teal mask, though, there's definitely a sense of, like, well, I mean, there's definitely a sense of, like, wonder, especially with of course, the new Pokemon coming back in. My one question to them is that with Pokemon Sword and Shield, they were able to bring back pretty much all the legendaries through the raid adventures, the max raid adventures. Will they do that for Scarlet and Violet?
Yeah, I don't really know.
I hope so, to be honest, because I'll be honest, I actually did not really care too much for the max raid adventures. Because so I kind of hope that there's another way or easier way to get legendaries available and possibly shiny hunt them too. As someone who's a massive shiny hunter, especially in Pokemon Go, which, funny thing, as we are doing this podcast, the latest event is actually gonna kick off alongside Pokemon Go Fest, New York.
Nice.
I want to make a DNC. With that said, though, I mean, it's DLC. Not really much to talk about from there, other than the fact that I really hope that they will fix up the kinks in this game. I know for a fact that back when Gimme Gold was available in Pokemon Go, there were several people who reported lost save data in their Pokemon Scarlet and Violet games after they transferred a postcard.
Oh, that's not good.
And considering this man has 8 shinies, I do not want to lose that progress, so I'm gonna wait on it until maybe around October before I buy my DLC.
Yeah, that sounds like the safest option.
It's not fun, and then it's simply a bummer that Scarlet and Violet has been plagued with so many problems. Granted, it's still a great game, but man, I think it could have been 11 out of 10 had they been given more time.
Yeah, it still does seem like people who like Pokemon still enjoy Scarlet and Violet, but for some people, yeah, the bugs are just inescapable. How many bugs or glitches have you encountered, if any?
1. But that was literally at the end when I was in Area 0 and I realized there was an easy way to clip out of the map.
Ew.
Now, here's the thing. It was just by searching and I was just messing around with the game. Although here's where it gets interesting. I still have not encountered a game crash.
Interesting.
And my friend who I was playing with mentioned how like his game keeps running like 12 frames per second. Mine runs at 30 to 40, sometimes 60.
Interesting. And you have the game as a physical copy, I imagine?
Physical copy on the original Switch. This is not an OLED.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't really matter what kind of Switch that you have because they all perform the same. I feel like some of the performance stuff might be like physical version versus digital version on SD card and digital version on system memory. Because believe it or not, there are like load time differences for games. Like I know Mario Kart, if you have the game on system memory, the game will load up the fastest that it possibly can. Game card is the slowest.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask my friend about that then.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just like system-wide for Switch games is digital on system storage is fastest. Game data on physical is the slowest. SD card is somewhere in between. Some games it isn't really a factor. Other games it actually kind of is. Like I've heard of some people getting less frame rate dips in like Splatoon 3 if they have the game on system memory.
By the way, side tangent on that, who's your fave?
Oh, for the upcoming Splatfest?
Yeah, this was a big one. And to think that it's been 1 year since Splatoon 3 was released, that's crazy.
Yeah, so the wording specifically is, who do you think is the best leader, Shiver, Fry, or Big Man? And I made a tweet about this last night. That's what I'm calling it, a tweet.
Still on that,
basically, yeah. Basically, I was thinking about that wording, about who would be the best leader. I'll just read the tweet. The wording is tipping me off to something. Among other things, leaders aim to keep the people that they control or lead in unison, formation, order, even. Yeah, I kind of think that this Splatfest is going to influence something in the side order DLC. Almost maybe the winner will be the villain.
That is a
the
very
DLC.
good proposition.
Yeah, so because of that, I think it would be funny if Big Man is.
Oh.
So I'm thinking I want to choose Big Man just because I think, like he's normally just such a jovial, goofy little guy. So
away from that kind of bias, thinking that it's relating to DLC, who would you have chosen?
So just in general, the best leader. I mean, Shiver is pretty like stoic, and she seems like she would be the best leader. But then I think back to the past however many Splatfests, and I'm pretty sure she's won all of them. So, and Big Man has won some. But I guess completely taking that context out, probably Shiver, like, objectively would be the best leader. I'm still choosing Big Man.
Well, we'll see what happens later soon enough. So, man, again, the thing has been 1 year. Alright, with the next stop, we're going to look at Sonic Superstars, and I'm actually going to pull up the launch trailer for this, not trailer, the trailer for this game, because for me, right, I'm curious to see, I actually want to check who is actually developing, or if they did mention about the developers of this game. Reason being, Sonic Mania, we already know, was a passion project helped out by, of course, the maker of the iOS and Android versions of Sonic, and that was Christian Whitehead. How about this one? Like, that's what I'm curious about. But at the same time, let's be honest, the art style looks fantastic.
Yeah, let's see. I don't see it on this page. Let me Google it and watch the camera bounce.
I am looking at the thing right now as well on my end. Yeah,
developers are Zest Sonic Team?
No, well, that makes sense, of course.
Yeah. That really seems to be the only info that I can see. And yeah, even Sonic Superstars .com, it just at the bottom just says Sega and Sonic Team. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, with that said though, it's a solo project done, well, not say solo project, it's a project independent of the big companies that helped out with Sonic Mania. What would that imply? Well, maybe possibly like a different game style, considering we did see a lot of different things in the trailer too that are very unlike what we usually see in Sonic games.
Yeah, is this the first time that they're doing, well, I guess maybe not quite, but I was about to say this sort of 2D, but it's like 3D rendered, well, not rendered, but like in a polygonal 3D space, but you only have 2D control?
I mean, if you want to count Sonic Unleashed at times, but even then, that is also mostly 3D. But otherwise, I would say yeah.
Nice, okay. Yeah, it's really giving me vibes of Donkey Kong Country Returns. Like that sort of feel.
Eh.
Or like if you play Mario Maker 2 in the 3D world style, like, again, that sort of feel where it's like polygonal 3D space, but you only have 2D control. Anyways.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, for me, right, the first thing I'm noticing straight out of the gate, right, the zones themselves, I mean, they mostly look, I mean, the art style, they definitely look like previous places I've seen before. I'll be honest with you. Like like I can recognize something like yeah, the green area looks like Leaf Forest from Sonic Rush. One of the stages looked like similar to Sky Sanctuary. No, not Sky Sanctuary. Seaside Hill from Sonic Heroes. Now, am I saying that I'm worried about like originality? Not really. Consider the fact that it's not like every single different area would to have like different what's the word I'm thinking of? Not background. The area differences, I guess you could say.
Okay. Okay.
Where in a sense that not everything has to be different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've never really played a Sonic game, period.
How dare you?
So, yeah, I have Sonic Mania on Epic Games Store because it was free 1 week. I just have not touched it.
Probably might wanna, honestly. Sonic Superstar is looking fantastic for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially the 4-player co-op.
Yeah.
But with how fast you go as Sonic, I wonder how that's gonna be handled. Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see about that.
Well, one thing to note though, they did showcase all 4 characters together, like in a flash montage. Notice how all of them were moving almost at the exact same speed.
Yeah, so yeah, it almost makes me think that they're gonna like neuter Sonic's speed in that, or whoever was playing as Sonic just deliberately held back on not going fast.
It's like, oh, what was it? It's like, oh, what was that game? It's like Sonic R, where it's like they totally, yeah, Sonic has to be in a car, otherwise he will be too fast. I know, not that. Sonic All-Star Racing or something. I forgot. There was one game that they made the joke.
Okay.
Also, I also looking at it. Yeah, you're right. I can see what you mean of the 3D, but actually mostly 2D thingy. Like swaps from an X. It swaps from an XY to an XZ, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and they play with I have the trailer just on loop here. In some parts, they do play with going between the foreground and the background, which I think that's cool. I think the first game that I played that did that was Mutant Muds on 3DS. Yeah, I think that's just really cool, and back then I really wished that New Super Mario Bros. 2 did something like that, but it didn't. Not to go on that tangent.
I mean, one last thing to note, that last part before they told about the release date, hello, are we seeing a character from Triple Trouble return?
Let's see here.
The last well, if you're wondering, that character was used as one of the fake enemies in Sonic Mania in Mirage Saloon. So, looks like he might be returning, either as a boss or even better, as a playable character, which would be quite cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll just have to see. It's still too early in the development stage for us to even speculate some certain stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think... Yeah, they really haven't given too much info about the game aside from the trailer, or have I just missed it?
Nah, they really didn't do much. If anything, I was just saying right now, the fact that they threw back to Amy's Sonic CD design, I like that.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Alright, Now with that, let's move on to the next on the list, and that is Detective Pikachu Returns.
Yeah, so
I did not get the first game.
yeah, they announced that Detective Pikachu was coming to Switch in some capacity like years ago. I think they announced it during the launch year of the Switch or close to it, and we just have not seen anything regarding that. So I'm glad that they finally have something. Yeah.
I also am quite glad too. It's quite nice though to see that such a movie like Detective Pikachu would still be relevant till now through the games that they created. And from what I heard, the first game definitely did very well on the 3DS. So the fact that it's coming for the Switch, that's cool and great. Second thing, does that mean that we might get the original one on Switch as well? Because they have been porting a lot recently, Nintendo.
Yeah, and we'll get to some of the porting stuff that they've been doing, but from what I've heard, the original Detective Pikachu game at times was a little bit simple, but I mean, it's Pokemon, so it's a wide audience, so you can't really be like too esoteric in puzzle design, I guess.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Yeah, I mean, if they did stuff like what they did in Danganronpa, I would be shocked in terms of puzzle complexity.
Or Professor Layton.
Danganronpa.
Oh no, just say or Professor Layton.
That too. Yeah, I haven't played enough Professor Layton to say.
Would you say?
Yeah, even that, I would be a little surprised.
I mean, would you say the complexity of puzzles in Layton is harder compared to Danganronpa?
Danganronpa is hard just because of how many curveballs they throw at you with especially once you get to the class trials, you just start to wonder like, how was I supposed to make all of these connections? At least I felt that way. Yeah, without spoiling anything. That's as far as I'll go talking about that.
Now I kind of want to see a video that's just titled "A Real-Life Detective or Private Investigator Plays Danganronpa."
Oh my gosh.
That would be the best.
I forget what trial it is in Danganronpa 3. But let's just say it's the murder happens in the real world, but at the same time not in the real world. That's all I'm gonna say.
I have an inkling of what you mean by that, and that's scary if that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can like say the setting of where it takes place without saying like the culprit and the victim. Virtual reality.
Oh, that's quite cool. All right.
Yes. Yeah, there's some rules in virtual reality that you have to keep in mind of like objects are unbreakable, and that plays into a specific aspect of the murder, and I was just sitting there like, what the hell is going on? Anyways.
That definitely sounds like a trip. It definitely does sound like that. All right.
Oh
next.
My gosh. If you have the chance to play Danganronpa, play Danganronpa. and anyone listening to this.
All right. Now we're going on to the list of games that Nintendo have ported to the Switch finally. First up, the Batman Arkham trilogy. Oh boy. I mean, I know not many people are into Batman, but the fact that that whole trilogy, inclusive of the Game of the Year, one of the I think either the canon or the actual Game of the Year, is on Switch is very exciting.
Yeah, for some reason I thought that they were already on Switch. So when I saw this, it's like, oh, well, I guess they're on Switch now.
I mean, to be fair, I thought SMRPG was available on SNES Online, so I know how you feel.
multiple times throughout the years, I've been like, oh, I should play Super Mario RPG. It's on NSO, right? Oh, no, it's not. I think it was on Wii and possibly Wii U Virtual Console. It was never on 3DS.
If I had to
On new
guess,
3DS
Wii U
Virtual
console, I think it was available.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
It was also on the Super Nintendo Mini, and that was kind of the thing that was almost made me get the Super Nintendo Mini, but ultimately I decided not to because it's like just for one game. Most of the other Super Nintendo games that I want to play, they're on new 3DS Virtual Console. This is like back in 2017, so.
I mean, we'll get to more Mario stuff in a moment. For me though, it's like I only have seen only a couple of videos of Batman Arkham games, but I've heard about how well they've done. I mean, this is just Nintendo continuing to port all of their most of the games to Switch, which means that Switch continues to be that mainstream console, which is good to see. I mean, will there be a new Batman Arkham game in the future? We'll have to see.
Yeah, wait and see.
Next up on the list I want to talk about is Metal Gear Solid Collection 1. Boy, that is a lot of games they gave us.
Yeah, and they labeled it as Volume 1? So,
yeah,
is
it's
there
like...
gonna be more?
Tell me about it. I'm just like, what are you telling us about this? Better be sneaky like a snake to us and tell us that there's more. Or is there?
Yeah. It's... Sorry, I'm trying to load up these pages here.
Same.
What all games does this
It has,
have?
well, 1, 2,
So-
3, and then several of the NES or SNES ones as well.
Yeah, so it has a good amount of the series, and I know there's been 5 mainline titles. I know there's a 5th one because some of my older brothers, like years when that game was new, occasionally I would see them, one of them playing it. That was on PS3, so I wonder if they do a Volume 2 and bring that to Switch, like, how will that work? Because the game has to, like, dump a good amount of the data to the PS3 hard drive. So, yeah, would you just have to pop in the cartridge if you get it physically, and then just leave your Switch sitting there for like an hour while Snake smokes a pack of cigarettes? Because that's what he does when the game installs the data. You just see Snake smoking.
I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, hopefully it will render properly, let alone. But just for the fact that Metal Gear Solid is on Switch, I mean, Snake is a household name for those of the big fans of that series. And it's nice to see at least that they still have not forgotten about it.
Yeah, and it's just interesting because I personally associate Metal Gear Solid so much with PlayStation that it's just... It kind of threw me for a loop. It's like, oh yeah, there have been some Metal Gear games on Nintendo systems in the past, technically.
And before they released one for NSO.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the NES version.
And let's not forget, there's also the they also have let us into their secrets of Metal Gear Solid with the comic book and also the featured artwork as well. So fans get to see like how it was like back in the days of development, which is quite nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of nice that all of those art books and comics seem to just be available right from the get-go. You don't have to unlock them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you go to click one, it may give you like a spoiler warning, like if you proceed you might see spoilers, and you hit either yes or no. So that's cool.
Such a smart idea. I'm very glad to see that kind of thing occur for that one.
Yeah, Yeah, and not just lock it away, potentially unnecessarily behind game progress. I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be a fun unlockable, but at the same time, I think there would be better things to put behind game progression unlockables.
I think the one thing I
So,
feel like developers have to realize is that even if they put it behind lockables, there's one thing that that will always foil it. It's the internet. The fact that people might be able to post it up on YouTube and let others know without really needing to play the game. So I wonder if
yeah,
they actually did take that into consideration.
probably. Probably.
I hope so, because otherwise, ugh, I don't think anyone. I don't think sales would be that good if they did hide it.
Yeah, but potentially.
Alright, next thing on the list. I want to just cover this very softly, considering that Jiozak will get more in detail with this. Officially, every single Pikmin game is gonna be on Switch.
Yeah, not just gonna, but is.
Yeah.
Except
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah,
Hey Pikmin.
Yeah. Oh, or Go Pikmin, because there's the mobile game.
Oh, Pikmin Bloom. Yeah.
Pikmin Bloom, yeah. So,
Yeah, I've dabbled with Pikmin Bloom a little bit. It's all right, but there's not a whole lot of substance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what we saw is developers like Pokemon Go, so maybe give it a break. Or
Yeah,
technically more time, if that makes sense.
yeah, it is basically just a walk enhancer, which isn't a bad thing, but yeah, I don't think it's as engaging as Pokemon Go. Not to say that it's bad. It's fun. I just don't necessarily like the thought of, in order to get the most out of the app, you basically have to have it always running to some extent in the background on your phone, and I mean, I've heard of some people who've had really bad battery drain because of that. I really didn't, but I still don't really like the thought of it always just running in the background. So
Definitely doesn't sound good. With all the Pikmin games now available, though, it's good to see that. Well, it's great to see though that Pikmin is continue to shine. And I mean, actually, what was the first Pikmin game? I think about it. 2001? No.
I believe so.
Oh
I
my
think it was either a launch title or close to launch title for GameCube.
Oof. Now I feel old.
Pikmin release date.
Like, I'll be honest, the only reason I
2001.
knew about Pikmin was because of the first time I remember was because of the memes with Chicken Conroy and the TRG. You know, Steve.
Yeah.
Man, the fact that we almost forgot about that meme. It's been a while since that has been brought up again.
Yeah. I'm just cross-referencing the release dates. So, according to Wikipedia, it says initial release date October 26th, 2001.
Oh, jeez.
And let's see. The GameCube first released September 14th, 2001. So yeah, it was pretty close to a launch title, within the launch window at least, of GameCube.
Dang.
Yeah.
And look where it is now, 22 years later.
Yeah, so I bought the Pikmin 1 and 2 ports on Switch a couple days after they were released. And this was my first time playing through Pikmin 1 period and 2. Pikmin 1 is it's definitely interesting. They really nailed down a lot of the series staple mechanics and the like, but there's definitely something that it's like, okay, I am glad that they fixed this in later titles, mostly like Pikmin AI and how they follow you. Because those poor little guys can't go up like slopes. They just can't. Or go across bridges. You have to like deliberately like use the swarm to make sure they're in a line behind you. Otherwise you might end up with some in the water or worse.
I will note that once I play Pikmin 1, because I do plan to play that for next year or 2025.
Nice.
He will go
Yeah.
on to Pikmin 4 later in the video, the podcast for those wondering, so don't worry, we did not ignore it.
And a little bit of Pikmin 2 because I have thoughts.
Oh dear, Thoughts
Because
is definitely putting it lightly of her.
Yeah, I mean, I 100%ed all of the Pikmin games actually, save for getting platinum on some of the missions in 3 and some of the end game stuff in 4, because you get ranked in some of that later stuff. So I have it mostly platinum, but still not quite.
I know there was a post you put recently. It was just like, bro, are you kidding me? This guy was 1 centisecond away from platinum. Literally 1 centisecond.
Yeah, and on my attempt after that, it's like, oh, if you're not on Ochi when you try to go up, it doesn't block you with an invisible wall at the bottom of the mound. You can just walk up. And so if I would have done that, I would have gotten platinum. But I didn't. But I still got platinum on my next attempt after that.
Hello, nice.
Yeah.
Alright. But yeah, I mean, just glad to see Pikmin. I will be able to play on the Switch, but then again, I don't really plan to for now, unless it's Pikmin 3. Because, I do want to at least try to record my first experiences with Pikmin, which I know for a fact. I know of a friend of mine who has been badgering me to play Pikmin.
Yeah, it's... With the first 2 games being on Switch, more and more people have been recording themselves playing the series for the first time, and now that I've played through the whole series, I get to be one of those people that just sits back and laughs.
Oh dear. Alright.
Yeah.
Next up on the list, I'm not sure this game is already out or not. WarioWare Move It.
Yeah, so it's a fall release. Yeah, I was not expecting a motion-based WarioWare after Get It Together came out. Because with that, it's like, okay, very much, you play it with the stick and a button. That's it.
This is basically 1-2 Switch meets WarioWare, honestly.
Well, actually, the Japanese name, I forget exactly... Yeah, so, Japanese name is WarioWare Super Smooth Moves. And lest we forget that there was a Wii game called WarioWare Smooth Moves.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's basically a sequel, more or less.
Why did they have to change it for America?
I don't know.
It's like oh boy, what was that weird renaming for America just because the name didn't sound great in Japan? From Japan? I remember there was one where it's like they renamed it because they thought the original name sounded too boring.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that, but all I'm thinking of is the European name for Yoshi Topsy-Turvy. Do you know about that?
Oh no, I don't.
Yoshi's Universal Gravitation.
Wow.
Yes.
Audacious! Audacious!
Yoshi's Universal Gravitation.
Dang.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like I mean, to be fair, the Switch is pretty well set for a game like this because you can detach both Joy-Con. Ideally, you put the wrist straps on, so then they're attached to your hands. And you have pretty much like free movement, as opposed to the Wii, where if you wanted to do something like this, you either had to do Wii Remote and Nunchuck, in which case you were tethered by the cord, or 2 Wii Remotes, because some games did that, so then you would have like full movement.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm just really curious to see just how it's gonna be, because honestly, my favorite WarioWare game is Get It Together, which is very much traditional control scheme. So I'm very curious to see how much I'm gonna jive with purely motion-based Warioware.
And how much you're gonna look like a weirdo just moving your body. It's like how the demonstration
Yeah.
did the direct. I think all of us just
Yeah, all I can think of is that one shot of it's that they showed in the direct, a microgame from, of all things, Super Mario 64 DS.
Yeah.
And the guy just like T-pose and then slowly
Oh dear.
It's like, I don't know why I found that as humorous as I did, but I did.
Play Mario. Assert domination.
Yeah, well, it's like you were going down the Princess Peach's Secret Slide.
Yep.
Is the micro game.
I know
So
that
it's like-
one, yeah.
Yeah, it's like shifting your weight. Like I can see that.
Still a weird way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see. It definitely looks solid though. I'm just hoping that the gameplay will be better, much better than what 1-2 Switch did.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it'll be better than everybody 1-2 Switch and 1-2 Switch.
Fingers crossed. Anyways, with that said, we're gonna finally move on to the meat and potatoes of this section. That is, so many Mario games.
Yes.
Oh my goodness! Like you were wondering why we completely moved over it. We were saving it for last because boy, oh boy, there was a lot to wonder about. With this collection of games that have been released. First of all, we mentioned about it, SMRPG Remastered. As if Link's Awakening wasn't enough, there's a new game in the Chibi Switch series, apparently. I'm gonna call it.
Yeah. I'm such a fan of the Mario and Luigi RPGs and Paper Mario to an extent. I've kind of been wanting to play Mario RPG, but again, I've never gotten around to it. But now that it's being remade, it's like, okay, I will be picking this up.
For me, I won't because I have played the game already. I'm not saying that I am not interested by any means. Maybe around like in future years I would buy the game. But for me, it's just like, oh, it's just another remastering. It's kind of like Link's Awakening where I'm just like, oh, I'll probably just play the NSO or just on my emulator. Since really the only difference I'm seeing so far when I look at the trailer is just heightened up graphics, although I'll admit that the bosses look sick in the remastered version. And then also the stats, because apparently they're adding a lot of new stat, like, what's that, tracking, I guess? That's the word I'm thinking of.
I guess, yeah. If you notice in some of the shots of the trailer, there's this weird, like, meter in the corner that shows, like, a percentage. And it's like, I don't think that was a thing in the original game.
No.
So, that's completely new. I wonder if that's, like, you do enough attacks and all that, and it builds up and you can do some, like, super extra powerful move. I don't know.
Considering that is a turn-based game, I don't think so, considering that I'm looking at one of the screenshots for it. It basically just says like tree chain and there's like a regular boost in action gauge, defense, and magic defense. So for me, it's just like, oh, it's basically getting changed just to get like better stats in game. It's like a mini boost that you see in Pokemon, for example.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, at this point, it could be anything. But again, it's one of those cases where they just have said nothing about it.
Will they bring back... Oh, I mean, they probably will bring every single thing that was in the original game, like weaponry, defense-wise, or any of the accessories. My one question is, will they do something different? Should I... Don't mind if I say a slight spoiler?
Go for it.
So, there is a secret boss at the end that is actually based off another franchise. Oh, you know about it?
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, I was thinking, is he gonna say about the secret boss? Yeah, okay.
I mean, from another franchise, for those who don't want to be spoiled, I will just say that. But I'm wondering if they will be able to get the rights to like repeat that boss, if that makes sense. Because I can't imagine that company allowing for that to return, quote unquote, without like a few like, hey, nudge, nudge, money.
Right. Or if they're just like, yeah, we'll replace them with something completely different.
I mean, who could they replace it with?
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't know.
By the way, I am finally halfway through Bejeweled Endless. Woo! 140. That is halfway.
Very nice.
140 levels left. Help.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So, one thing that I've been kind of thinking about regarding this game is, like, Mario and Luigi, it was developed by Alpha Dream, and they're no more. And that series has not seen an original entry since 2015 with Paper Jam. Yes, 2015 because it released in like Europe and Japan several months before America for some stupid reason.
Oh, jeez.
It took them months to remove the bros from the subtitle for America. Because in Europe, it's called Paper Jam Bros. Same with Dream Team Bros. But yeah, we had the remakes of Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story. But we've seen no completely original content from them, from that series in forever. Paper Mario it's still active because like we had Origami King, and there's really only been one Paper Mario on a system.
That is true.
I'm kind of hoping that this game does absolute numbers, and this becomes essentially the quasi-replacement for Mario and Luigi. Because if no other developers are working on Mario and Luigi, let's do like this remake, and then a couple years later on the next Nintendo system, an actual, not just spin-off of this spin-off. Let's do an actual Super Mario RPG 2 that isn't paper, and yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Jiozak, everything has to start with paper.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but like that's what Paper Mario started out as. Like, it was planned to be a direct sequel to Super Mario RPG, but during the development cycle, that changed. So,
I mean, we'll see. I mean, that definitely is a interesting proposition, but one that doesn't seem outlandish, more importantly.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I was excited, not just because this is a thing, but also the implications of it. So, as long as it sells well, which I hope it does, and it probably does, because the first-party Nintendo games on Switch just sell millions of copies. So, fingers crossed.
One last thing before we move on. I can't believe Gino returns finally.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Incredible.
Yeah, after he got axed from his cameo in Superstar Saga Remake, I'm happy to see that he's back in his original glory.
Oh, indeed. Alright, moving on to the next thing to talk about. Very two quick things. Hello sequel to Super Princess Peach. Potentially.
Yeah,
That gave me the biggest shock out of all the games. I'll be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, it's definitely was not on my bingo card that I totally made, but yeah, and it's like theater themed for some reason.
I mean, several games like Mario Party 2 were in a theater, so not really big of a shock.
Yeah, I suppose. It's still kind of interesting. literally all we know is like a 20-second snippet of gameplay.
Yeah,
Because that's all they showed.
I remember a few days after the direct, me and Jiozak were just discussing about it and how we were joking about that trailer in particular. And we're just like, oh hey, here's 20 seconds of the game and that's all you get. So it's we still have that thought to this day. It's like, why do they do that? But at the same time, if it's just development, definitely will spark some discussion, which is always a good thing when it comes to gaming. When you are able to spark discussion and hype over a certain thing that is new and particularly possibly exciting, that's always a good thing. So I would say it's a good marketing strategy that they just give us that little.
Yeah, yeah, it almost reminds me of when they initially announced Pikmin 4. Yeah, they kind of showed some shots of the first area and then the logo. And then Miyamoto was like, oh, you play from the Pikmin's perspective. And that's it. So, yeah, it almost feels like they know how to, like, give us just enough information to, like, spark some discussion and theorizing. And then just leave it there.
Indeed. Would you say they are sparks of hope?
Oh. Yes.
Anyways, there's one more thing to, of course, to talk about, and that is the Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon port.
Yeah. So again, I'm excited both about this being a thing and also the implications.
LM4?
Well, more 3DS ports.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's not a bad. Excuse me. That is also a possibility.
Yeah, so, it's kind of funny. So, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is more or less how, like, the two of us met, or part of the reason why.
Yeah, for those wondering, I remember that was in Stephen George's stream, and I actually was talking about how I finished up Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, and then some guy by the name of Jiozak texted and said like, hey, I also do Skyscraper, you want to do it together? And it's like, sure. So we hooked up Discord, and the rest, as I like to say, is really history, because ever since then, he has become partial editor, partial podcast partner.
Yeah, I still remember the sessions we did in that Scarescraper. It's been forever since I've even played Luigi's Mansion 2 to begin with. It almost makes me think, like, not just think, I hope that they bring back the Scarescraper from the original game. I hope it's just a complete port, and it brings everything.
I believe it will, because honestly, if they did, for me, right, I think it would be a bad rep if they just copy and paste it from Luigi's Mansion 3, considering the fact that the Scarescrapers are completely different.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Scarescraper in 2, like, back then it was definitely a novel concept, but the 1 in 3 is objectively better. But 2 still has a lot of things going for it, and, like, it's definitely a different feel. You're not so much pressed from time, unless if you get a rush floor. In which case, oh my gosh, you only have 30 seconds. What the hell? See, I think the last time that I played Luigi's Mansion 2, I specifically tried to get as far as I could in a purely rush Scarescraper. Oh my, it is hard. The timepieces only give you 10 seconds. And you oftentimes spend more time in a room just looking for timepieces than the timepieces that you get. Like, you end up losing time, almost.
Yeah.
Or I was just unlucky.
One of the two.
Yeah.
For me, story-wise, I really like Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, and the cartoonish aspect of Luigi definitely brought joy to me when I played. And I still remember some very familiar cutscenes in my head right now when I look back of that game. My one question though is that will they keep the scoring system intact? So that means the star system intact. Because as I remember, it's kind of what kind of deterred people from 100% in the game. Because the system was so... You had to be very particular with your movements or what you do just to get your free stars.
Yeah, that scoring system is very esoteric. It basically takes into account, like, well, basically, you do better the more money that you collect, the less time that you take. The less damage that you take. I think there's one more thing. It might be the ghost that you catch. I don't remember. But
Ghost catcher times 120 plus coins you get plus a certain score that you start with minus a time, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds about right. I think Chugga Conroy went over that.
Minus damage times 6.
Okay.
If you're wondering how in the world I remembered that, that's because I did 100% the game myself. I did have to do the research.
Yeah, and the thing is that the game does not tell you what the target score is for each level, because each level has a different target score to get bronze, silver, and gold. So you just have to try to find a route that gets you a lot of money, and you catch a lot of ghosts in the shortest time possible, and with the least damage taken as possible. Like, I did it. I got gold on all the missions. It wasn't terrible, but I can see why people don't like it.
Fun fact, there's actually one level that has a negative 3-star goal.
What?
Yes, because that stage doesn't have any coins, right? They had to limit to where you basically just need to get a certain time in order to get... And it was kind of impossible to set it to, like, 0, if that makes sense.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, technically, couldn't they just, like, put the target score as 1?
No, in this case, no, because it would have been way too difficult with how the boss acts. Unless they had put money in, but in your original level itself, they did not put any money.
Okay.
So that's why they had to put it as a negative goal.
You said that each level just inherently starts you out with a certain amount of points, and...
Actually, no. Actually, no, not thinking about it. I'm saying that wrongly, but the rest of the things, like the coins, the damage you take, the ghosts you capture, the time you take, plus their multipliers, that is all correct.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I have, someone on GameFAQs has a table right here. Yeah, so it's the final boss. The target is minus 200.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, which is weird because I do remember there being money.
Well, there is, but here's the problem with that boss. It's very
enough.
easy to take damage. One hit from King Boo is already a minus 120.
Yeah. Yeah.
And remember, there's only one ghost you're capturing, King Boo himself. So that's only 120 points.
Exactly,
one hit from King Boo already equalizes the points you would have gotten if you had captured King Boo.
Exactly, so you're just trying to avoid taking any damage and just going as fast as possible.
And getting gold in the process if you can.
Yeah.
Which is why I say which is why sometimes they have negative goals, otherwise it wouldn't have been possible to 3-star this game.
Yeah. What do you think of the mission structure, just in general?
I quite like it. I like the idea. It was the only game out of the 3 LMs where they have done this mission type style. And for me, I don't mind it. It's a twist on the classic format that, as we saw, was implemented back into Luigi's Mansion in the 3rd game. For me, I'm okay with it. It's nothing too big. It's nothing like very awkward by any means. And if you're that kind of guy who doesn't really care about the star ratings, it's honestly fun.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure they did the mission structure because it was on 3DS, so it was better for them to do that, as that was like a segment of gameplay that like had a satisfying end with like the results screen. You get sent back to the lab, and I think somewhere in the process the game saves. So it was technically better suited for a handheld as opposed to it being something like 1 or 3, where it was basically just continuous and there weren't these like stops in the gameplay. So yeah, I'm personally kind of indifferent. Like, I'm fine with it, but also I'm fine with them not being in there, like in the first and third games.
Yeah.
It does mean that they can do some different things. Like, in each mission, there is a singular hidden boo. So, in that case, then you're not necessarily having to run around just to find these boos. Like, in your first playthrough, it's like, oh, here's the boo, let me catch it. And then you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the mission. So, yeah. Although there are the gems, and I'm sighing because they have the same problem that the blue coins have in Sunshine. You don't know what missions they're tied to, yet there's like 20 of them per mansion.
12, if I'm not mistaken.
Close enough. But, still, for those, I was just like, yeah, no, I'm using a guide. These aren't very well designed.
Now,
Now,
I remember how I got mine. I think I did use a guide as well, but still. Oh, wait, did the gems count for points? No, they didn't.
What?
Never mind.
Oh. Like, if each mission had, like, a button that you can hit that would show you, like, these are all the possible gems you can find in this mission, then it's like, yeah, that's fine. You have, like, an individual checklist that it's like, okay, I'm playing through this mission. Okay, I found every gem. I don't have to worry about it.
And before they do implement it in the remake.
I really hope they fix that, because that's really my biggest complaint.
Understandable.
Yeah. If you have a mechanic in your game that is like the blue coins in Sunshine, it is not a well-designed mechanic.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. I mean, if... Yeah.
Alright. That's it. Let's talk about the last Mario game that was announced. And, yeah, gee, I wonder what it is.
Oh, yeah, I wonder.
Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the first 2D Mario game that will come out since New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And apparently Mario goes on a trippy ride. As trippy as the fuzzies in Yoshi's Island.
Yeah, Mario takes a very special mushroom in this game. It's why it's rated M. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to go that way, but Jiozak did it for me.
Yeah. But also, the joke really doesn't work because it's not a mushroom that he takes, but it's a flower. The Wonder Flower, to be specific. So, yeah, it's a very stylized 2D Mario game where the main gimmick is occasionally you're going to see these Wonder Flowers that essentially power up the levels, it feels like.
Yeah.
It makes them become more alive. And it looks like in some contexts, it's only for a specific period of time. You see in some shots, there's like very obviously a timer at the top middle of the screen. So, they're probably gonna do something where it's like, okay, you get to this spot, you grab a flower, you rush to this other spot in the level to get some collectible, or a Wonder Seed probably, because that's the star coin equivalent in this game. you do that, and yeah.
I mean, yeah. And of course, we've seen some other stuff like, well, Mario turned into an elephant for some reason. There's also the fact that Daisy's finally playable, which was my quick make title from my reaction.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that she's never been playable in a mainline game.
Till this game.
Yeah, I'm super happy to see that she's getting the attention that she honestly deserves. I'm hoping that Rosalina's an unlockable, but
I mean, she already was in a previous game.
Yep, so that's why I'm kind of hoping that she ends up being unlockable. We'll
how
see.
broken her spin double jump would be on 2D games. I kind of want to see.
Gosh, yeah.
I kind of want to see Mario ROM hacks where they include Rosalina's effect.
Yeah, where you basically have the spin jump. Although, I mean, I have the trailer up. I did just see Mario do like the midair, like air stall that you can do in New Super Mario Bros. Wii and U.
Yeah.
So if Rosalina were to be in the game, it would have to give you like an extra vertical height, because there's already the spin.
Okay,
from
yeah.
the previous games.
They would
Yeah.
have to. You're right. So, just the thought in my head was saying, like, that would be quite cool to see certain games being broken by Rosalina's effect.
Yeah.
Like, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe implements it like how using Toadette was easier as an easy mode, and then Nabbit is very easy.
Yep.
I think it will, if Rosalina was in, it would be in the middle. So it's like harder than. Wait, no. It'll be easier than Toadette, but harder than Nabbit.
Yeah. One little detail, if you look at the trailer, is there's the regional currency, or something that looks like it, from Mario Odyssey. So I think this is the first 2D Mario game with 2 different currencies.
Oh. Man.
Yeah, and not just that, but there are some levels where you're not collecting like whole units of this currency, but you're collecting like tenths of it, like these little chunks, and the counter in those portions has a tenths place. Which is weird.
I have to see what that means soon enough.
Yeah, with there being the 2 different currencies, I really hope. Well, I mean, it's in the game for a reason. I want there to almost. Well, I don't know if an upgrade system would really be
Necessary in a Mario 2D game?
Yeah, so maybe you spend the currency in like the Toad House equivalents. Like you have to pay some to be able to access a Toad House.
I would laugh if it's a similar system to Kirby and the Forgotten Land. You know what I mean, right? Where it says that more currency you get, they're able to like upgrade the Waddle Dee village.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you have like a little hub.
Yeah, and before it is taking off of that, that would be kind of funny.
Yeah. Even if they didn't do something like that, I think it would be fun because like they're already playing around with things and having more lively animations. It would be cool to have alternate costumes or skins that you could unlock.
That's very true. I tried to ask though, okay, I'm gonna sound dumb for asking this. Was Luigi playable? Or is Luigi playable in this game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that scratches off an idea I had. Going to this. One last thing before we move on. I'm quite glad to see that the Nintendo is kind of taking the stride that the princesses are no longer damsels in distress at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad that they're kind of moving past that because, like, it was just sort of boring and predictable, especially with all the new Super Mario Brothers games and how that was the story for all 4 or 5 of them.
I find it hilarious as well that Super Mario RPG does the same thing because Peach is playable.
Yeah.
And then secondly, the only damsel in distress that happened throughout the Mario games, all 4 of them that were announced, was Mario.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that brings into question what exactly the story, quote unquote, for this game is going to be. I give the air quotes because Mario games are always just, oh, the princess is captured, go save her.
Not this time.
Yeah, so
Actually, wait,
like,
this is the first 2D Mario game that has Peach as playable. So that means there's no... Oh boy, actually, yeah, who's the real problem here?
Super Mario Brothers 2. She was playable in Mario 2. But yeah.
Well, yeah, true. Well, no, here's the thing though. That one, oh yeah, that's true. That was the first time. But then again, that was like the early days. And then again, let's not forget that Super Mario Brothers 2 technically was not supposed to happen.
Technically, yes, but they've brought a lot of things from that game into later games, mostly thinking of Mario 3D World because it's the same playable characters, the same attributes for all of them. So it's like, yeah, they basically they actually did something with that, but yeah, it was originally like, yeah, not supposed to necessarily go that way. So yeah, in terms of completely original Mario games, yes, yeah. Not to go on like a minute of pedantics.
It's okay. Still though, we'll just have to see, and I mean, hopefully when we buy the game, it will be worth it. Let's just say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you heard of some of the reports of the playtesting for this game?
No, I have not.
It's apparently like on the verge of like NES Mario 3 difficulty almost.
Yo, I don't mind that. I could play Mario 3.
Yeah, I wonder what the experience of the playtesters was, because I imagine that they got people who've barely touched Mario games before, and maybe some other people that, like, oh yeah, they played Mario on their Nintendo back in the 80s. So, yeah, there's definitely like, I feel like there's some validity to that thought, but I'm still kind of worried that it's gonna be relatively easy. Again, it's a Mario game, but at the same time, there have been some like mainline Mario games where it's like, oh yeah, this has a little bit of spice for a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Namely, the couple times that I got to play New Soup on the DS. Like that I got to some of the later worlds over a weekend, like I was renting the game. And it's like, yeah, this is difficult for me. But
sorry, I'm still on New Soup over here.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that's what a lot of the internet calls that series. And...
I know, but something about that term. I'm at the soup store. Sorry, I had to break that up.
Why are you buying clothes at the soup store?
There we go.
Screw you.
That was the first thing that came to my mind. I was just like, oh dear. Anyways, we're off a tangent. That's all the June 2023 discussions done. Now we're actually moving on to well, quote-unquote subtopics, because they are mostly related to that direct. Jiozak, I
Yeah.
believe you have actually played, I think, 60 plus hours of Pikmin 4 at this point. So how was it?
Yeah, so actually let me wake up my Switch here to get my Switch profile. It says I've played for 40 hours or more. So okay. Overall, like objectively, I think it's the best Pikmin game. Mostly because it fixes a lot of the little qualms that I've had with previous games. So, let's see here. I have notes.
I mean, mostly particular in 3, right? Because 3 probably fixed 1 and 2, and for you would say 4 fixed 3.
Sorta, kinda, yeah. So the like I really appreciated from a game design perspective the day limits in 1 and 3. Yes, technically 3 has a day limit. It's like 99. You're not gonna hit that, but it still has a day limit. But especially like even in 1, if you're playing the game just at all and getting at least a ship part per day or setting things up to get multiple ship parts the next day, you are not going to hit that day limit, almost to the point where it ends up not really being prevalent or not really being a threat. So I do think foregoing the day limit in 4 was the best way to go, because it's like, okay, if it's not really a threat, let's just get rid of it. So at this point, it's kind of funny. The odd Pikmin games have day limits. The even ones don't, and they have caves. Yeah. I jumped ahead of my notes. So, that's not to say that Pikmin 4 doesn't incentivize being efficient with your Dandori, which Dandori is like a thing that's repeated throughout the whole game. Basically, it's a Japanese word that relates to your ability to strategically plan and execute said plan. And with that, they actually took the missions from 3 and the versus mode from 2 and 3, basically, and put them in the story mode in certain parts via the Dandori challenges and battles, which I do appreciate, because I don't think really a lot of people, well, I mean a lot of people who are really into Pikmin played the missions in 3, but I can see a lot of casual players kind of skipping over that. So basically putting it in the story mode and forcing it essentially for 100% completion, I do appreciate, because you actually have to plan things out, maybe even play through one of those multiple times to really get a sense for things and reconfigure your plan. So I really appreciated that. And I don't know if I necessarily want to say exactly what this is, so I'm just going to be as vague as I can with it. Once you get to a certain point in the story mode, you unlock a side mode thing that very much incentivizes efficient Dandori, because there is an overall time limit. I don't know if how sensitive you are to spoilers for this game.
I mean, for now, don't really say too much. And I do want to clarify for those wondering about what Jiozak said. Basically, you are insinuating that, what was that? Oh wait, I'm trying to remember what he said. Oh, you're appreciative of the fact that mission mode and like those like extra modes you see in Pikmin 3 are implemented into Pikmin 4. Because for Pikmin 3, usually the hardcore players would go for those, but the casual players won't.
Correct.
And
yes.
with the fact that they're in Pikmin 4 now, it kind of like encourages casual players to try them out.
Yeah, and not just try them out, but you have to do them and get at least bronze rank in them to rescue the castaway that's kind of watching over or is being like withheld in that cave, because you encounter them in the overworld via the same like cave entrances basically, but the lids are a different color. And so if you get at least bronze, then you rescue the castaway, and you have to do the night expeditions to get a cure for the castaways to like get rid of their leaf covering. And a lot of the castaways give you like quasi side quests and other things as well. Some of them will eventually let you like give you access to replay the Dandori challenges and battles, because in the overworld you can only like once you go in and complete it, it's like locked down in the overworld. But once you rescue certain castaways, you can replay them as much as you want from the hub. So, that's cool. And I guess because I mentioned the caves, I do think overall the caves in Pikmin 4 are better than in 2. For one part, they're not procedurally or randomly generated. They're always the same layout every time, and things are in the same place every time. So they were actually designed with human hands. And unlike Pikmin 2, this is one of the quality of life features. If you leave the cave from the pause menu, then you still keep all of the treasure that you collected. Because in 2, if you were to do that from the pause menu, you would forfeit all of that. It would have to be returned to the cave, and you'd have to recollect it. Granted, in 2, if you exited via a geyser, everything would be saved, locked in, you were good. But it's still nice to know that if things really go downhill, like you can just abort from the pause menu. What else? I'll get to the rewind feature later. I was about to mention it, but it's like, I'll talk about it later. I do still think that the Pikmin 2 caves, to be honest, are not as hard as the internet made them out to be. Really, if you just run through a floor with a lone captain, that sets off any and all falling hazards, and plus you get a lay of the land, you know where things are, and so then you can take your squad in or take certain types and do what you need to do.
So basically you can scout and plan.
Yeah, and I feel like not everyone really thinks to do that, because they just oftentimes you kind of gloss over ideas like that. Also, the game doesn't tell you that, oh hey, this is a thing, but you know, people figure that out, and online you see people saying that all the time, so it's like, okay, I know to do this. That being said, when I was playing through the game for the first time, like, what was it, last month? Somewhere around there. I will say that the caves were a bit nerve-wracking, partially because of the reputation that the game has overall, but once I hit a certain point, it's like, okay, I know how to play the game, I am confident in my abilities, I know to use sprays
Sounds
and
like
to stock up on sprays.
Sounds like you're going through a self motivation session.
Sort of, yeah.
I am me.
Yeah, but like because Pikmin 2 has no time limit, you
Yeah.
can just spend multiple in-game days farming up sprays and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So by the end of the game, I had several dozen of each spray, or both sprays.
Jeez.
But yeah, that being said, Pikmin 4's caves are... They were more fun to navigate, albeit they were, yeah, less difficult. Except one in particular that, I just... Okay, this isn't an endgame cave, but when I realized that what it was, I just got the biggest grin on my face. Do you care if I say what it is?
Is it the water wraith?
Yes, it's a recreation of the submerged castle.
Oh, for crying out. No wonder I saw that on Tom's screen on the highlight. I was just like, don't tell me that the water wraith has returned.
It's basically a one-to-one recreation of the submerged castle.
Oh.
And when I realized that that was a thing, I was like, yes, people that skipped Pikmin 2 because of caves like this, they're not safe. They still have to deal with the Wraith.
I say exactly. That's I was just like, uh-oh. As I said, when I first saw that highlight from Tom, I remember I did spot that. And I was just like, uh-oh. Uh-oh!
Yeah, I'm not gonna say much further about the Wraith specifically, other than that's not the only time in the game he appears.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Yep. Let's see here. Okay. One thing that makes things a lot easier in the game is Ochi. For one thing, you can ride him, and all of your Pikmin will just latch onto Ochi, meaning that a lot of the tension that came from, like, for example, in Pikmin 2, you're navigating a cave, and you have this giant mass of Pikmin that you have to be aware of, especially in the submerged castle, because if you have, like, a full squad of blues, and the water wraith is active, hopefully they're all flowered, otherwise they will be dead. But in Pikmin 4, you can just hop on Ochi, and you're just this one, like, self-contained unit, basically, that you just move as, like, a single unit. So it makes things easier, but almost too easy at points, like in the case of it's the engulfed castle, is what they call it in 4. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, like, yeah, Ochi makes things easier in that cave, but also, because that cave was deliberately designed, and it's not just randomly generated, I forgot. They do some things that intentionally waste your time a little bit. So, it's almost guaranteed that the Wraith is gonna spawn in at least, like, 2, if not 3 of the floors. Yeah. All the upgrades that you can put on Ochi, like, Ochi makes the game easy. That's not to say that that's a bad thing, but in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, like, he really makes a lot of things just super easy. Like, the upgrades that you can do, you can basically, he ends up being essentially the equivalent of 10 purples that have way faster carry speed.
Whoa.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that eventually he just inherently has the ability to swim, so you can hop on Ochi and just transport all of your Pikmin across water, even if they're not blue. So he does open up a lot more functionality and flexibility, even if it is at the cost of difficulty. Yeah, the way that you upgrade Ochi is by finding and then rescuing the castaways. So that's actually also another reason to engage in the Dandori battles and missions, is so then you can eventually upgrade Ochi. So that's that gives more reason to actually do those.
So there is the incentive that you were talking about.
Yeah, so then
That's quite cool, yeah.
Ochi just absolutely overpowered. Why am I blanking on a lot of the things? Like, you can upgrade his ability to bite to where you can charge all of your Pikmin on an enemy, and then charge Ochi on that enemy to stun them, and then have Ochi just start biting the enemy, and the enemy's dead in like 5 seconds.
Hey.
Yeah. And Ochi isn't the only thing that you upgrade. There's plenty of other upgrades to get. A lot of them are equivalents from the previous games, like the different elemental guards, which you get individually for your character and Ochi. The ones for Ochi are more expensive.
Understandably.
Yeah, and some of the upgrades you get are basically required to get platinum on some of the missions. Like, one that just saves so much time is the Pluck-a-Phone from 2. That's an upgrade that you get in 4. And in a lot of the missions in 4, like, there's just patches of planted Pikmin. So before, you'd have to run over and start plucking, but once you get the Pluck-a-Phone, you see them, you whistle, you have them.
Bruh.
Yeah.
All at once?
Yeah.
Well, that's quite crazy.
Yeah. And in order to get those gear upgrades, you have to spend raw material, which you collect from the overworld and in dungeons. That raw material is also used to build walls and bridges for traversal. So you end up playing this balancing act of, do I spend all of my raw materials on gear upgrades today, and then maybe a couple days later, once I've accrued more, do I just build up all of these walls and bridges for better transportation?
It's like the ultimate game for life balancing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and not to mention that the raw material is also used for consumable items, which technically has been a thing with the sprays in previous games, but this game has actual, like, consumable items, like different bombs, different shockwaves, and things like that. Granted, they do make the game even easier. That being said, it's pretty easy to just ignore those, because aside from bomb rocks, they're really not needed. And even bomb rocks in some cases are optional. They just make things a little faster.
That's what I like to know.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've been watching Steven and Mal's playthrough of 4.
I haven't.
Okay, they've been playing the co-op mode in that game. Well, more assist mode. Player 2 controls a pointer on the screen. It's basically like Mario Galaxy. Almost quite literally, because you shoot like little pebbles at the enemies.
Who's shooting them in this situation, though?
A what?
Who is shooting them in the first place?
Like, in the context of the game?
Yeah.
It's not really known. I mean, the game refers to it as the Pebble Pitcher, but you don't see what on Earth this Pebble Pitcher is. I think it's just like an off-screen thing that just shoots the pebbles.
Optimus is Olimar.
Yeah. No comment. But the more that you hit enemies, the more consumable items you get. So, once Stephen and Mal get later into one of these sessions, they just have like 30 of everything.
Oh.
So, yeah, it definitely makes things a lot easier, almost to a detriment. But I mean, if you wanted to treat the game just as like a chill co-op experience with a friend or a loved one, as long as player 2 pulls their weight, which is not hard because you just point and bang. Yeah, could be a fun co-op game for folks out there.
Sounds like it, yeah. It really does.
I'm just gonna speed through the rest of these because I feel like I've taken a lot of time on this.
You're at 21 minutes.
I basically said most of the main things that I wanted to say.
While you do that, actually, it's my turn to take the number 1.
The what?
Take a number 1.
Okay. So, as he does that, I want to talk about the captain situation. So, Pikmin 3 had 3 different captains you could play as. I felt like that was a bit much. I never really felt like I could effectively take advantage of that much multitasking capabilities. So I really only ever had 2 captains doing something and then 1 back at base to maybe take Pikmin that were done with tasks and bring them somewhere else and then have another captain go back to base. So it's kind of nice that Pikmin 4 goes back to having 2 captains because Ochi is part captain, part Pikmin. So not only can he carry things, but he's also a second captain. And because of his unique abilities and like being able to transport Pikmin over water, and he can jump, he can do things that the regular player character can't. But then there are some things that the player character can do that Ochi cannot. When you're controlling just Ochi cannot like rush individual types of Pikmin, but the player character can. And that's useful in some situations. Yeah, okay. Aside from the items that make things easier, the rewind feature is very broken.
Oh?
Yeah, okay, you're back. So, to summarize what I just said, in Pikmin 4, it's back down to 2 captains because Ochi is part Pikmin, part captain. He can do things that the player character cannot. But the player character can do things that Ochi cannot, and so it adds an extra layer of strategy because it's like, okay, I need to bring Pikmin over here with this specific captain to be able to do this specific thing. So it adds a little bit of extra spice to Dandori.
I see.
But yeah, the rewind feature is absolutely busted. Like, you can just lose half your Pikmin and be like, okay,
Reset.
let's rewind 2 minutes.
Oh,
yeah.
Wait. 2 minutes?
Yeah, like, you can rewind to, like, not just the start of the day, but, like, even just, like, a minute or 2 ago. I think it auto-saves at every little, like, bubbled increment on the sundial. As well as between floors, in caves. So, like, if this is your first Pikmin game, absolutely feel free to use the rewind feature. Like, you're still gonna be figuring things out. It may feel overwhelming. Perfectly fine to use that.
Sounds like in the
If you're
Pikmin.
like-
Sounds like in the Pikmin world, they have managed to take the Nintendo Switch Online technology and implement them for their own.
Yeah. Yeah. But, it got to the point where I just had to stop using Rewind because it was so good that it made Pikmin Loss it made Pikmin Loss just way less impactful. Excuse me. Because it's like, oh, if I lose 20, I didn't actually lose 20, I just lost 2 minutes of progress.
1 year later, they implement a mode called No Rewind mode, or something like very
Yeah.
similar to the Dread mode in Metroid Dread.
Yeah, well, that's the fun thing about Pikmin 4 is you can like dynamically change how difficult the game is based off of your item usage, your rewind usage, all that.
Yeah,
I think it's
exactly.
great. One more thing, you can set shortcuts on the D-pad. Oh my
that's
gosh, it makes
nice.
things so much easier. Yeah, actually not just the D-pad, but also the left stick click. So I have...
They finally
have
used the toaster and then the Switch. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. So I have upset to switching between the captains, like if I have them separated, instead of having to always hold down Y, tab over to switch, I can just hit up and I switch. I have left set to disband, which will, like,
separate,
get all
the Pikmin.
Yeah, well, it gets all of your Pikmin out of your squad, except for the type that you have selected, which you want in some cases, like, oh, there's this thing in the water, but I don't want to bring everyone with. Okay, disband, but I'll bring the blues. Some cases I want to just bring a captain in, so right I have set to disband all. And down is for spicy sprays, because that is the muscle memory from Pikmin 2 on Switch, and like I just played through the game, so it's like, okay, muscle memory, let's set it to that. Left stick click I have set to the idler's alert, which is an item you can get, which will cause any Pikmin that are just standing doing nothing and bring them to where you signaled the idler's alert. So you don't have to go to base to get all those Pikmin. They can come to you.
Dang.
Which is very useful for the missions. Yeah. A couple things that could be better. Make the auto lock-on optional. There are some cases where it feels like I'm fighting the auto lock-on.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know why it's forced. It's gotten to the point where I've just had to rewire my brain a little bit to basically work with the auto lock-on and basically not fight it. So there's that. The night expeditions are a little bit underwhelming, once you get a feel for things. They're still fun. I really like them. But I feel like there could have been a little bit more, or maybe like some harder stages with more things going on, because it feels like those end sooner than they should have. And especially at the start of the game, there's a lot of dialogue. Compared to the previous Pikmin games, like this game has the most dialogue out of all three combined.
Wow.
Or at least it's close to that. It definitely has the most dialogue out of, like, considering the games individually, but there is so much talking. And a lot of it is honestly not very necessary. So I'm glad that you can mash plus or minus to skip that. Yeah, if, like, there's demos on the eShop for both 4 and 3 Deluxe, so if the game looks at all interesting to anyone out there, give them a try. In fact, if you end up getting the corresponding full version of the game, your save data transfers over, so you can pick up where you left off. Yeah, that's basically all my thoughts.
Definitely sounds as though you had a good time, but also you kind of methodically thought about it, about how Pikmin 4 has improved, but also could have been better.
Yeah, it almost is making me think that, or at least hoping, like, okay, they did this with 3, I really want them to do this with 4. DLC missions, please?
Oh, that would be sick. Like, similar to how they did it with Pikmin 3. That would be nice.
Yeah, like, just put a pack of Dandori missions on the eShop for, like, let's say a dozen missions for $20, I'll buy that.
We'll have to see if they do. Definitely has potential. I'll say that. It definitely has potential. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Anyways.
yeah. So with that, that's your section done with talk about Pikmin 4. Now, for me, this is a bit of a side thing, where in the sense that we are in the month of August. I know for a fact that we are 2 months late to discussing about this Nintendo Direct, but to be honest, it's a slight blessing in disguise. With the almost guarantee, as I mentioned, of how Nintendo Direct might happen next month, in the month of September, I just want to quickly look back, and I want to say this right now, this, for me, the June 2023 Direct might be the best Direct in years. And I'm talking about pre-COVID.
Yeah, honestly, it's, if not the best, it's definitely in the top 5 of all time, I would say.
There's a good mix of games that they announced, especially with the different main genres. Ironically, the only genre that was not mentioned was Zelda, but then again, I feel like everyone is already occupied with Tears of the Kingdom, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
There's no overwhelming of any franchise, of honestly. Well, besides Mario, but then again, it's a household franchise for Nintendo. They are allowed to do such a thing. For those wondering, I'm not counting any of the minis, so like in 2020, because honestly, they really were mostly partner showcases, or they're just too small for me to judge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of all they could do in 2020 is just the minis. Yeah. Things had to get shuffled around because 2020.
Yeah, let's not talk about it too much.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it just felt like every single moment, it's just like, it's a point of anticipation of what is to come. I feel like 2023 might be a good year for gaming. It might even be better compared to 2022, just because of like just so much hype over different games. I mean, Sonic's getting a 2D game after 6 years. Mario's getting a 2D game after 10 years. Several more ports coming in. There's just so much potential for what is to come. And let's not forget, there's still the final wave of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that is still to come.
Yeah, a lot of the announcements just in general feel almost like pipe dreams that we had a couple years ago. Like, oh, it'd be cool to have a fully original 2D Mario game on Switch because there's just New Super U Deluxe. Or, oh, like, aside from Paper Mario, Mario RPGs are dead. It would be kind of fun to have Mario RPG on Switch. So these like little pipe dreams all of a sudden just got realized.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, all mainline Pikmin games are on Switch. So it's like the Switch is now the Pikmin machine.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Which, one quick side tangent, every home console has had all of the available Pikmin games on it. So GameCube had 1 and 2, obviously. The Wii didn't have an original one, but it had enhanced ports of 1 and 2 with motion. The Wii U had 3, and the Wii versions of Pikmin 1 and 2 were released basically on its virtual console. And now the Switch has HD ports of 1 and 2, enhanced port of 3, and original one of 4. So I feel like that's Miyamoto just being super passionate about the series, and it's like, I want people to play Pikmin. And finally, it's like, especially during the launch of the Pikmin 1 and 2 coming out, it's like it was topping the eShop charts. It's like, oh, that makes me happy. Anyways.
I mean, that is definitely good. A lot alone, like there's some other games right on that the list that we didn't mention that still deserve some mention, like Persona 5 getting a port. Well, not a port, but more so like a different game. And then some other franchises also getting. Just Dance 2024 has been announced. It's like it's just that eclectic collection that's not doesn't feel boring or predictable. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just feels like we just got a very nice selection that we can look forward to, like for months to come. Let's just say.
Yeah. I just put Pikmin music on as background music for me, and I'm at the results screen. Not to go on another tangent, but it's at the results screen music, and it feels like weirdly fitting in like a very emotional way for this this whole thing, and it's like, oh, I was not expecting this. Also that specific track is very good. Yeah, just the amount of stuff that is like new that's coming to the Switch, and again, like I said, all these like pipe dream games and Pikmin 4s. Can you tell I like Pikmin? Pikmin 4 is finally out of development hell. So it just feels like
liberating.
A year of liberation, and I don't know what you would call it, just like
Relief?
Yeah, relief, because it's like, okay, the Switch is so successful, why is there not a 2D Mario game of its own? Now we have it.
Sonic similar, how we have not gotten like an original Sonic 2D game in a while, and then it's like, hey, hello, superstars.
Yeah, and that's not, like, we're not even mentioning some of the stuff that wasn't really even talked about too much in this Direct. Like, I think it was today I was hearing, the spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk,
yes,
came out today. And I've heard nothing but praise about it, except, like, the story's kind of meh, but other than that, it's great. So, seeing, like, a spiritual successor to that series, that's super cool. And spiritual successor to Danganronpa, the, Master Detective's
Rain-Code.
Operation Rain-Code, yeah. That came out a couple months ago, but still, that's during 2020. And people have, like, that series ended in a very definitive way that it's like, okay, future games would not have the same impact that, like, at this point, because of the way that 3 ends. So, essentially taking a lot of that framework into something different that seems to be executed well. That's great. I have not bought it yet because the base version is $60, and I want to buy it with the DLC. Because then I'll get that when it releases, and that's like $90. It's like, I'll just save that for like, yeah, I'll save that for a little bit later and just say that it's a birthday present for myself. Because I really like Danganronpa when I played through that, so if there's something that's basically Danganronpa but more, I will play that.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Now, one more question, of course. What are our hopes for next month? Because next month, I mean, we already got a lot from 2 months ago. Is there really anything else we want at this point? Any more? Any more of that pipe of yours?
I would say there's one more thing that I feel like would make this year, in terms of specifically Switch releases, even better. Think back to the start of this year. We finally got Game Boy and Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color. I feel like the only other console that Nintendo could feasibly put on Switch Online
No. GameCube?
are DS games.
Oh, we definitely went 2 different routes.
not GameCube, because they've been doing a lot of HD ports. So, like, think back, the first time that they really did this, Mario Sunshine as part of 3D All-Stars. Then they did Metroid Prime Remastered, which that was this year. And now Pikmin 1 and 2. You can see that they're not really interested in offering something like GameCube on Switch Online. They want to make those in HD, like port them in HD, and then sell them for like $20 or $30 in the case of Pikmin. But if you buy them both, you save a little bit.
I won't go into much asking about like how that would work on the Switch, because the first thing that came to mind was it probably would have to be handheld and not console. But that definitely is a possible proposition that they could come up with. The only problem I see, and this is actually going to lean to what I want to see, I hope to see more like the Mario Party 3 finally be available on NSO, first of all. And then secondly, the confirmation of even more NSO games. Because honestly, and I heard from a news article, Nintendo apparently is kind of running out of games to release on the NSO.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, they just brought Game Boy Advance games, and there's only like a little over a dozen titles or whatever that they have on Switch. That system has like a library of over 1,000 games.
That's true.
There's plenty of stuff from there that they can bring, but they're just not. Like, aside from doing handheld with the touchscreen for DS games, either gyro pointer for the touchscreen or set it to like a pointer you control with the right stick, and then you like click it whatever to touch or something like that. That's my thought.
That could work.
And then have the ability to like orient the screens however you want, like on the Wii U Virtual Console. Microphone support, questionable. Most games you just blow into the microphone, so that they could just emulate that with a button press, but who knows if they'll do that. But yeah, at this point, there's really no other systems they could really bring to NSO. Probably not even, 3DS games, because with Luigi's Mansion, Dark Moon, that's a 3DS port. Excuse me. So, yeah, it almost starts to bring up the question of, is next year going to be the year where we hear about the next system?
There's always that rumor every now and then. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I don't really follow the rumors, but I have a good feeling that they're at least going to announce it, like, around this time next year. Because, they did that with the Switch originally. They announced it in, like, October of 2016, and it came out March of next year, or the following year. Which, granted, yeah, that probably ate into their holiday sales that year, but they more than made up for it with the sales of the Switch and its software. So if they're able to replicate something even similar to that, then yeah, they're probably going to be light on new titles next the holiday next year, and just bank on the sales of the next system. So
yeah, indeed.
We'll just have to wait and see. I don't really I don't really put much stock into the rumors. I actually just play the games.
I mean, it's Nintendo. You can't really hope for good stuff. But then again, this Direct was definitely proved us otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, a couple months after the Switch released, they're like, here's one more model of 3DS. Have fun. So they're unpredictable.
Exactly. Oh. Well, we'll have to see. Indeed, Nintendo works in wacky ways. What we have discussed definitely was proof that even they can pull off some stuff that we wouldn't have never expected. But that's not to say that we cannot hope, because if they could do what they did June, who knows what they could do in next month. We'll just have to see in due time.
Yeah. I guess last minute. Are there any games for the current selection of consoles on Switch Online that aren't available yet that you want to see available?
Sonic Advance series.
Okay. Nice. I bring up that question, but it's like, oh shoot, what's my answer to my own question? For some reason,
you chose that question.
Because it just came to mind, just spur of the moment. And now, for whatever reason, I'm thinking Mario Party Advance.
Oh, why?
I don't know. Shoot. What Isn't there like an F-Zero game on Game Boy Advance?
F-Zero GX?
Yeah. Game Boy. Game Boy Color. It'd be cool to see Super Mario Brothers Deluxe.
Oh, dude, the game I will reckon on.
Yeah, granted, there's like 5 other ways to play that game on Switch already, via like the NES and Super Nintendo All-Stars and whatever. But, well, okay, that's like 2. But, still, like, that game has a lot of its own unique content that, like, it would be cool to have on Switch. Also, I'm not a fan of Pokemon, but I really feel like they just need to bring the original Game Boy Pokemons to Switch. Yes, there is the thought of, like, cloud saves would allow for duplication. Well, then just release them as their own piece of software.
Yeah, I remember we had this conversation before, or at least I had it with a friend of mine. To be honest, I will not make it a topic, but I do know of another topic I want to discuss next time we do our Visual podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And with that said, that's gonna be it for now. Oof.
Yeah.
Hey, that was a good discussion. Oh man, I mean, as I said, long time coming for us because we've definitely been very busy with our lives, so that's why we couldn't really do the podcast in time. But glad we managed to finally do it.
Yeah, and hopefully we can do one soon after whatever the next direct is, because let's be honest, the directs are easy pickings for topics. You don't really have to think about it too much.
Not at all. Not at all.
So